make sure your palms are clean. There's a good chance they're going to be on your face in the next few minutes. As quite a few of my videos testify, much of my antipathy towards the Catholic Church focuses on the child sex scandal. Not just that children were raped and brutalised by those supposedly with a mission of care, which is betrayal enough in itself, but that these atrocities were covered up systematically by the Church in such a way that the victims were held guilty and the offenders were actively enabled to re-offend. There's sufficient evidence to support the claim that the hierarchy of the Catholic Church not only knew of this, but aided and abetted those clergy who had raped and tortured children. Each time I've made a video about this, there have been posts from Catholics claiming that Pope Benedict didn't know of this, that he's apologised and committed to investigating the problem and holding to account those responsible. Now, I've questioned the plausibility of someone with Ratzinger's political savvy not knowing what was going on, especially since his signature is present on some key documents. And I've questioned the sincerity of apologies that hold the people of a country partly responsible for these attacks on children because of their own lack of morality or increased secularisation of society, rather than placing the blame where I feel it lies, with those who actually committed these crimes and those who have protected the perpetrators at the expense of the victims. Those defending the Church have claimed that mistakes were made and that that's now all behind them, and that the Church wants to cooperate with the authorities, rather than, as was previously the case, discourage the involvement of the local law authorities at all costs. So let's put that to bed now, once and for all, because the evidence indicates otherwise. Police investigating allegations of sexual abuse by clergy in Leuven in central Belgium carried out a raid on Thursday in which they seized files and a computer from the offices of church headquarters whilst gathering evidence. There's a link in the description box. So what was the official response from the Vatican for this action taken by the Belgian police? Total support for a thorough investigation and total cooperation with the local law authorities? Well, of course, no, it wasn't. The Pope himself described the actions of the police as deplorable. Church officials compared this collecting of evidence as the equivalent of, or worse than, the oppression the Church suffered under communist rule. The detention of priests whilst evidence was gathered, presumably standard procedure to prevent any kind of tampering, was described as serious and unbelievable. The Vatican has summoned its Belgian ambassador to the Holy See to express its anger. Well, I'm pretty sure that the anger being experienced by the Holy See is nothing compared with the anger of decent human beings faced with this kind of arrogance. They just don't get it. In spite of all of the weaselly words trying to say what they think we want to hear, they still think they're above the law. Benedict is quoting as having said, "I hope that justice will follow its course whilst guaranteeing the rights of individuals and institutions, respecting the rights of victims and acknowledging those who undertake to collaborate with it." If there was a Nobel Prize for chutzpah, Pope Ben definitely has my vote. The rights of victims. Would those be the child victims and their families sworn to silence on pain of excommunication, perhaps? The rights of institutions. Would those be the institutions responsible for swearing those same child victims and their families to secrecy and enabling child rapists to move on to fresh pastures and then ruin more lives? And how about acknowledging those who undertake to collaborate? Would that include those who keep vital records from the police, thereby hampering the very machinery of justice to the point where the police have to execute search warrants? Well, I hope that justice is served too, Benny, and I think it's going to be best served by investigating you and your criminal cohorts down to the tiniest detail. Don't delude yourself into thinking that your collaboration is desirable or even necessary. We know what your collaboration consists of. Smokescreens, denials, coercion of witnesses, and anything else that's deemed necessary to protect your corporate interests. And let's face it, with your history, we know that anything is justified to protect your revenue stream. You've had your chance to deal with this in a way that any decent, honest human being would consider to be decent and honest, and you've failed. And even now, you just don't get it. Well, brace yourself, Benny, because justice is heading your way. And it has a twinkle in its eye that means by the time it's finished fucking with you and your pals, my dead Xbox 360 won't be alone in having a glowing red ring.